an unusual opportunity here to interview what many of you probably have seen. Johnny was one of the first contestants on Cody Askin's Ultimate Agent series that he had. I think Cody's doing his second thing.
Yeah,
just now here
it's
soon.
coming out soon. Yeah.
And Johnny has been selling Final Expense a little over a year now or so, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, it's coming up on like 12 months.
Yeah, coming on 12 months. He's done amazingly well. I think last month you closed right at 45 to 50,000 over the phone. So that's a lot of business, y'all. Like how many apps? Like 40, 45?
47, I think it came into.
Yeah. So I figured, hey, what a great opportunity to have somebody who's crushing it in telesales to come on and talk business. So first of all, kind of give us, if you don't mind, a little bit of background. How did you get into the insurance business?
Yeah. So, by the way, who's doing Final Expense telesales? Anybody? Everybody else in the field? Cool. Yeah. So my journey is I got into the insurance world by my father-in-law. So I met my wife in 2020, right before the pandemic, and ended up from there. We dated for a year and a half, ended up getting married, and I got introduced to the insurance business at that time. My father-in-law, I knew he was doing really well. I didn't know what specifically he did. He always was telling me insurance, but I'm like, this is like super boring.
Yeah.
So pretty much from there, we ended up getting married. I was working at Starbucks at that time. And like a month into it, I was like, I need to figure out to get like a real job in a way. I never worked like a real job, got out of college, went there for a year, didn't really enjoy that. Started my first business when I was 18, took all the money that I raised to go to a prep school to be able to go play Division I basketball. Took all that money, dumped it straight into a clothing line, and spent like $8,000 not knowing anything I was doing, just bought all these shirts, and I was like, I'm just going to sell it. But obviously to be able to have a business, you got to learn how to market, and I had no clue how to market. So did that for a little bit, wasted all that $8,000. But I knew if I could have real world experiences, that I could do something with that. I just need to learn the skill. So fast track into, I'm working at Starbucks, just got promoted, just working full time, and I was like, I need to find a job. So I reached out to a guy that actually my father-in-law introduced me to, and him and I had a conversation. He's like, at 20 years old, I got into the business at 19. At 20, I made my first $100,000, and I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm 20 and I'm like scraping by trying to make it at Starbucks. My wife's having to work full time at that point too. And so I'm just trying to figure it out. And so I was like, if I could have the upside in an opportunity to where I could make $100,000, that's possible. I know with the work ethic that I have and the dedication to learning and education, I knew that I could figure it out. And so I decided at that point to get my license. Took the test, failed first time, did it again. But really my entrance into the insurance world was not life insurance, it was employee benefits. So it was business to business, cold door knocking businesses, no leads at all. Really just going on Google Maps, looking up a little town plaza, and just going into businesses and trying to pitch them on why they should listen to me. And honestly, it started horribly. And I had a lot of anxiety at that time, that's for sure. But I mean, it's one of those things that you just learn to adapt and overcome.
How'd you get into life insurance? What was the process there?
Yeah. So at that point, when I got my license, I decided to go into the world of YouTube. And I just looked up, how do I cold call? And so I started listening to cold calling, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm listening, all these things are good, but it's all real estate stuff. And I was like, I should do insurance specific cold calling. So then I found Cody Askins, get into finding David, find other people like that, and just start listening to interviews about how people are actually working leads to where people are actually filling out a form and you can work virtually. And I was like, this is crazy. I've never worked a lead in my life. And so I thought it was a great opportunity at that point to, if I could work warm leads, I could pretty much predict my income. Because at that point, I did it 4 months going business to business to business, and I wrote 30 grand my fourth month there in employee benefits. Definitely, like, it's super different. Commission structures are completely different on the employee benefit side compared to the life insurance side. But my commission that I actually like made on that was $1,500. And I was like, I'm hearing these people doing $30,000 a month over the phone, making $30,000 a month. And I'm sitting here, just did $30,000, issued business, and my commission's $1,500. Like, there's a better way. I could work less, do really what I want to do, and travel. So at that point, it came down to, I had to sell my wife on this opportunity. I was sold. I was like, let's just go into life insurance. And when I pitched it to her, it was horrible. She's like, that's got to be fake. Because the way I was presenting, I was like, I could literally just make $30,000 a month selling over the phone, and that's all I need to do. Like, I just buy these leads, and like, you make 4 to 5 times it, and that's pretty much it. So so she's like, that sounds really weird. Like, you should get some input on that. And so I was like really nervous. It kept me in that job for a little bit longer, but it came to the decision like, all right, I'm gonna have a serious conversation and be like, you know what, this is what I want to do. So we have a conversation, and I was like, I don't believe it's like fake. I don't believe it's a pyramid scheme. I actually think this is a legit opportunity. Like, I would love to be able to explore this. So I remember at that point, I actually just quit my other job that I was like getting bonus. I was making a base plus commission and just went into commission. So at this point, come in, and I have $8,000 saved up because we just got married. It was really cool and then also I was saving a lot. But then I literally like remember the first month I spent like $8,000 on leads, and like I made back, I think, 7.
Right.
And I was like, what in the world? I put money on credit cards. It's the first time I ever was in credit card debt. I remember like feeling like flooded, like up to the roof, like you got to pay bills. And like, we had never been in debt, like never, ever, like never put things on a credit card, like maybe $150, $200, make sure to pay it off at the end of the month. And I couldn't at that time. So I knew I had to figure it out because I had fully jumped in, and it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows at the start. Literally right after that first month, I get picked and selected to go on Ultimate Agent. So I'm 4.5 weeks in, I get the call from Cody that I could get selected to be on the Ultimate Agent. And then now I'm supposed to compete in this competition. I'm 4.5 weeks into selling life insurance. So that was a whole journey in itself. So that's really my start into actually selling life insurance.
So what do you like about now you've gone into from, I guess, different kinds of life insurance and the final expense? What do you like about selling final expense? What is the perks of it?
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, so I started selling mortgage protection and like doing Zoom calls. And so like that's really where I started, is like you set appointments to get them on Zoom and present on Zoom. So that's really where I started. But then I heard that some people could sell over the phone. So I ended up at that point pivoted and started selling over the phone mortgage protection. And then I got a new mentor at that time after I was doing mortgage protection over the phone. And he's like, I think we should pivot more towards Zoom. And he was having great success with it. So I was like, I'm totally cool with that. But after like just writing term policies that like go to underwriting, a lot of them go to underwriting. The cash flow sometimes gets cut here and there. And I mean, the cases just continuously go longer just because if there's a blood pressure med pop up, you got to like get on the phone with the client, have them fill out a DocuSign, figure out why they're taking these blood pressure medications. So then I was like, I just want to pivot to final expense because my approval rate's like off the charts.
So with term, you're running into this issue of getting stuff you applied for approved.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's having an impact on your cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I remember I wrote $100,000 in 1 month, October of last year. And like, it was this big story and it was awesome. But at the same time, like, I just remember like 60,000 of that issued. And I'm like, what happened to this other 40,000?
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And then like when you write like a fully underwritten term, like your comp especially not being at like a typical comp being lower, plus on a fully underwritten, like those are low.
Right.
Not like a final expense first upfront commission. So I remember depositing maybe $20,000 and spending like 10 to 15 to actually do that.
Wow.
And it's like, it sounds great, right? Doing $100,000 of written business in 1 month. But then like you look at the bank and it's like, I'm still like $15,000 in debt. Like what in the world? So then I was like, I needed to pivot. And I knew that if I could own my lead source and if I could figure out decently enough to be able to generate a lead, I knew I could close. Because if to sell $100,000 in a month, you have to be at least mediocre at selling, right? Like at least. So I was like, okay, if I could generate a lead, then I could be decent at that point. And so then I actually was forced into final expense based on the previous place I was at. That was like all term products pretty much. So I was like,
they wouldn't release you.
No. So I was like, I didn't have a release and I didn't have any term contracts I could write.
So real quick, y'all understand what a release is? Let me just, in case there's one agent here watching this, a release is where your existing upline, if you're tired of them and you want to move to another agency, they'll sign off on a form that allows you to move from that company to the new company of your choice. So a lot of you out there are with organizations that don't release. The problem with that is that they're going to sell you on everything that is wonderful about what they do, like any organization would do. But the truth is sometimes things don't work out. And you want to make sure, if you're not in this position, to not get in that position. Because, you know, Johnny had to change up his full business model. And while it worked out wonderfully well, maybe it wouldn't have. You know, pivoting to a different product is not easy, right? And when a company doesn't release, then you're in the situation where you've got to make things work. And that just is that much more, you know, trepidation for you as an agent. So rule of thumb, always work with agencies that will release you, because that at least shows you, hey, we respect you as equal partners. And if things aren't perfect, you at least have a plan B and you can continue to do your business. We release. If you don't owe us money in debt, we release you because we stand by what we do. And the last thing I would want to do is, you know, Kenny's been working with me. I'd hate to hold him hostage if it just wasn't a good fit, even if things change, right? And that's a good relationship in business. And I found it works wonderfully well. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing really except get different companies. So I will say this, with that said, even if they don't release you, the good news is there are organizations like ours and others that have carriers you probably don't have, and then you can just get those. It's a lesser issue to switch carriers, but within the same niche, than completely have to reinvent yourself. So I mean, to me, it's a moral issue to some extent because, you know, if I bring on an agent, I'm effectively stopping their livelihood potentially by just not signing a piece of paper. It's silly. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody watching or the recording.
Yeah, and it was definitely like scary at that time because I remember like I had been turned on as earned before. And so like the thought of like getting turned on as earned again, where pretty much like you don't get an upfront advance commission, you get paid month to month as the client pays the premium, was like tough because I was not in the spot to be able to take that on. And so what I had to do is pretty much like look at all the carriers that I had and then look at all the carriers that David had, and pretty much like all the ones that I didn't have at that point because I couldn't write them anymore, I would just contract with those. Right. And then just write like, but there was a great amount. Like I had a more than enough carriers to be able to do that. But if I would have only switched back to term, if I would have just stayed with term, like that would be really tough. But luckily pivoted to final expense at that point and it was great.
Great. So yeah. Let's jump in a few things. You said a few things I know people are interested to hear about. You knew that if you self-generated your own leads, that you could make this work. So describe to the audience how you get your leads, what your strategy overall is.
Yeah, so I fully self-generate my leads on Facebook. So it's a blessing and a curse. The reason I say that is because you are fully reliant on your, like, you own the source, but like it all comes back to you at that point. So my advice would be when you're just starting out, either have somebody do it for you, but like you have a great lead source for that in terms of like getting all the benefits of that, which I commend. And so, but you it's just going to be challenging at the start because you're trying to learn how to sell and you're trying to learn how to market, and those are two very different skills. And so what I see a lot of agents do is they think that getting a self-generated lead is going to be the fix, which ultimately a great lead still will not close if you don't know how to sell and overcome objections and lead somebody to a buying decision. The reason why at that point, within a month, I was able to make $20,000 net profit after leads was because I knew how to sell the 9 months before. I went through and sold $350,000 of AP before I generated one lead myself. So at that point, like I had enough sales experience that if I got a decent lead, I knew how to close. But if I didn't go through that, I would not be able to actually have the story that of making $20,000 in 1 month, selling over the phone my first final expense month. That wouldn't have happened without the prior knowledge of the life insurance industry, knowing how to underwrite, knowing how to even sell, knowing like what that looks like even to have a prospect actually buy. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't know how to sell. Now, with that being said, if you know how to sell, then generating leads is a great thing because then at that point, you have full control over your business and you're not having to outsource that part of your business, because you and I both know that there are lead vendors that come on the scene and they'll go off the scene just as fast as they came on the scene. Also, you're going to pay for that margin to them for their expertise. So if you just learn a little bit and have a basic grasp and understanding on how to generate a lead, on how to put up an ad and have somebody actually come through, it's like, it's one of the one of the best feelings that I've had, because I knew that forever, even if the life insurance industry were to go away, I could go to whatever industry at that point and I could at least market decently and I would know how to close. It would take me a little bit to warm up to that, but I knew that if I had a decent marketing, I knew how to sell. And you being able to sell really well can take, you don't have to have the best lead to be able to actually sell if you know how to sell on the back end, if that makes sense. So all you need is people who are actually filling out a form about life insurance, which you control. And if you have that, then you're able to control the full flow of getting somebody cold to seeing money in your bank. And then you can kind of predict the whole flow at that point. And then it's really cool, but it takes really strong discipline, if this is the route you go down, to put on two hats. And it's like you're running two roles in your company. You're the CMO, the chief marketing officer, and then you're the CSO, the chief sales officer. So at this point, you have to have full accountability of yourself. Are you actually overcoming the object? It's like I have this conversation in my head a lot of times. I go to the sales guy and I say, okay, what are my KPIs, key performance indicators that I have in terms of selling? Okay. Am I doing everything that I need to do to be able to close what I need to do? Am I calling my leads within 5 minutes? Am I calling them, triple dialing them, right? Calling them 9 times the first 4 days. So nine times, 9 times, 9 times, 9 times. Am I doing that? Am I presenting well? How's my tonality at the first part of the call? So I track a lot of the stuff on the back end too. So here's some of the metrics that I track. A lot of people ask is like dials, contacts, how many presentations I run. So a presentation in my head is that I'm able to go through my whole sales framework and process and ask the client, Dave, do you want to, like, does this make sense? Or which out of these 3 options would you feel most comfortable with leaving behind for your wife? And that's a presentation in my head. And so having these small things, and then also how many sales I make, and then what's my closing percentage, I'm able to see, okay, I'm able to have full accountability to myself that, like, okay, I did everything in my power sales wise. So that's a full thing that I track daily. Now on the other side, you have a conversation, you have a full accountability as the CMO, as the marketing guy. What is lead quality like? What is the cost per lead? How many pre-booked appointments are you getting? What's the conversion rate on that? What's the click-through rate? Like, there's a bunch of KPIs that you look at on the marketing side, as well. And that comes with just experience as you go. So then you're able to like say, I was doing everything on my side to be able to close everything. It's a leads thing. So then ads need to be tweaked a little bit. But if everything's performing really well, lead cost is going really great, conversion, like the the lead cost, if everything looks good on the ad side in terms of like typically costs, I can go to myself on the sales side and be like, dude, you're not closing. You're rushing through your presentation. But this takes hyper discipline, and you have to, like, what I do is like, I'm only worried about sales 9 to 5, like, or whenever my selling hours are. I'm not worried about ads at all. That's like out of my head. I have the best leads ever. If I get somebody on the phone, I'm closing them. And like, I'm in that hyper, like, I'm gonna close. I'm gonna help this family. I'm gonna be able to like do everything in my power to overcome any objection that comes up. It's not an ads problem at that point. Then after that, I track all the metrics once a week on Fridays. And typically Friday to Thursday, it's, you could do whatever you want, but I do a 7 rolling days. And I say, how many presentations did I do? Like, I go through all those metrics and then I stack them up against what are ads performing at. And then I'm able to see, okay, what do I need to tweak? Because a lot of people think, okay, I need to tweak the ads, which you don't. You just didn't close well. You didn't call your leads within 5 minutes. You didn't follow up. You didn't overcome the objections how you should have. You didn't actually continue on through the sales process as you should have. So that's a whole another realm to go down, to like, that you can embark on. And I would encourage you to, but like, learn the business first, learn how to sell, learn the carriers, learn all these things, because that'll feed yourself in a marketing aspect. And the other thing I will say is that the better you are at selling and like learning the final expense game, the better you are going to be at marketing. Here's why: because I'm able to market, like, what do people want? What's valuable to somebody that's buying a final expense policy? Day one coverage, the rate's never going to change, the coverage will stay level, that it's going to be affordable, that I'm able to like shop around for them and look at any company and carrier to see which is going to give the best rate, and I'm able to market to that so that I'm able to have the conversation on the back end that I desire.
Great. Let's talk about the presentation that you used on the phone. I think a good place to start with, we're talking a lot about the presentation today, kind of how we do it, some suggestions. Top 3 things that you would suggest to a telesales agent, if it was just like even 2, like what do they really need to focus 80% of their attention on, the 2 or 3 things to get the best results?
So number 1, 100% is tonality. That is your body language. Like, in person, we have the opportunity to be able to express ourselves with the way we move, the way we're postured, our energy. But all we have, our body language, is our tonality over the phone. So you have to really like emphasize the tonality that you have over the phone, because that's all you have is the voice. So your inflections, asking questions, right? Bringing it down, concern tone, okay, like, and then a caring tone, a compassionate tone. Different, you have to maneuver that consistently over the phone. So an objection comes up, right? Hey, I already got it taken care of. Perfect. That's the exact reason for my call here. Before we hang up, and like, they're like, what? Okay. And then like, did you just get that, or have you had that for a little bit now? And they'll be like, oh, I just got it. Okay. And do you remember like how much they were charging you? Or like, do you remember what carrier they had you going with? Just so I can get you off the list and you can stop getting these calls. Do you remember what company they had you with? And like, see the inflection of the voice is like curious. And then they're like, AIG. AIG? Oh my, that's what I was afraid of. And see, like, just little things like that is going to be like, here's one thing. I was training an agent earlier today. One thing that a lot of people do over the phone right away is they're like, oh, I can get you a better rate. Here's the thing that I learned that has really served me well. People run away from pain faster than they run towards pleasure. What I mean by that is, people, if they're in an AIG policy, I know immediately 2-year waiting period 99% of the time. I know that they just got a day 1 coverage policy, but like most of the time that's probably going to be a 2-year waiting period. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's a 2-year waiting period. I need to like come across that way, but I need to come across with confidence. Is that what you were looking for? Were you looking for like to wait 2 years where the benefit wouldn't even pay out to your daughter? Or were you looking for something that the rate would never change, the coverage would always stay the same, and if you were to pass 3 days from now that would pay out to your daughter? Is that what you were looking for? And they'll be like, yeah, that's what I was. Okay, I actually have AIG, and they're saying that they're going to make you wait 2 years. And how much were they charging you? And then they're going to be more open to actually answer. So
I'll interject here. I'll just say tonality. Notice though, he's got body language when he's doing his tonality, right? There's a performance that goes on, like you can see the expression in his face, you can see his hands moving, so it's like you have to do this to emphasize what you're trying to say, because remember, they're hearing you over a cell phone, which modulates in a poorer way of actually how you sound. So you have to emphasize this. I think is
you do. And I do have the body language too, because I know that with my body language over the phone, it's gonna translate into my tonality.
Yeah.
So like I really try to, like, at first I was like really big on like emphasizing, like act like I'm literally like picturing this person in my head and I'm actually having a conversation with them. And then that really helped. Like now I'm just like, I have the presentation like locked in my head. So like I'm walking around, I'm like heating up some food in the microwave, like why did you fill this out? And like different things like that. But that'll come over time. Really emphasize the tonality, and if you think you're good, double that. Whatever you think is really what's the word, dramatic in a way, like double that, because like you're probably not as dramatic, or like your tonality is probably not as good as you think it is over the phone.
I'll add here too, if you go on YouTube, if you haven't already, Johnny Nitafan, he's got a YouTube channel. Some of his best content is him actually selling a live sale over the phone. So you get to see him on camera as he does the pitch. So highly recommend if you'd like to kind of see this stuff in action. Plenty of examples.
Yeah, I'm actually posting one this week, which is cool, and like it brings belief seeing that. Like I remember seeing them before too, and it's like it's cool to see. Like I actually have a few that I posted like an hour long of me not closing a sale and like just continue to get hit with objections. Like I have like, it's like a 50-minute video. That's one of my best ones, because it's like it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You're not going to close everybody, and like how do you actually deal with that adversity? That's what I'd say. The first thing is tonality, 100%. Like the first 3 seconds, typically the way they respond to my intro, right? So hey, this is just Johnny. I was giving you a quick call back here about the new state regulated life insurance programs in Arizona, and you listed your sister as your beneficiary. Is that right? And the way they respond to that, I can predict if they're a buyer right there. The way that, oh yeah, it is. I know that as long as I'm able to present, I'm going to close it. Sometimes it's like you get those really good ones and they're like, I literally am just about to leave. And it's like, you still want to like hang on over the phone. So the second thing I would say is abundance of leads. It's super different from over the phone to in the field. I was talking to, what's his name?
David Heath.
David. I was talking to David yesterday, and we're talking because he's in the field, and he's like, "Oh, I get 25 leads a week." I'm like, "Awesome. How much are you closing on that?" He's like, "Oh, typically like 10 to 14." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, closing over like 50% of leads," and I was like, "That's crazy on per lead." And so for me, like my metrics are like closing 7 to 10%. Like that's like amazing selling over the phone. And so like
why so different? Why is 7 to 10%? So that means 90 to 93% tell you no or don't pick up the phone. Why is that considered good in telesales?
Because like the lead volume is very different. And you have to, without the in-person effect, you're going to have to go through more people to get that yes and to get those sales that you're actually looking for. But also like people don't answer, especially nowadays. Here's a tip that like I learned. I had to go through a lot from this. 99% of the time your phone's probably going to get marked as spam. So here's a few things that you can do to that. Number one, number verifier they verify your numbers that you're calling from every single day, and they show you what they're getting shown to different people. So if they have AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they actually show you a picture of like what it looks like to the consumer on the other side. The second thing I would say is Kixi. The reason I say Kixi is because I stayed away from it for 9 months because it's $165 a month, which is like, it's a lot, but at the same time, my connection rate has increased 5 to like 7 times. And my average sale before I was using Kixi was 150 dials per sale. Now it's 38. And I'm typically 20 to 30 dials, sometimes like obviously more. But like yesterday, it was like 99 dials, 2 sales. So my average for November for 47 sales was 38 dials.
That's awesome.
Like if I make 38 dials, I'll make a sale. So that's like way different compared to making 150 dials. Like it's crazy different. So that's like a little side note, but like lead volume is huge. Having the right amount of leads and like just having an influx, like an overflow of leads, is what I would say. And the third thing I would say is master the front end and a back end objections. And if you're able to do that, that's really where you'll see a lot of success. And a little side note as well, do not get off the phone without closing and without getting a policy approved and issued. And so there's carriers that you can use to make sure that that's happening. Because I was talking to an agent yesterday, and he's like, he just made his 3rd sale ever over the phone. He's excited, he's hyped, and I was like, did you get it approved? And he's like, oh, it's in underwriting. And I was like, okay, great job on the sale, but like that's a huge thing, because then you're gonna run into what I did when I hit 100,000 in a month and only issued 60. That's where you're gonna run into a lot of problems with cash flow, because then it's gonna go to the underwriter. So then he texts me back, right, a few hours later, and it goes to graded, and I'm like,
Yeah.
tough. So here's what you do in these situations. So like what you want to do is you want to get, when you get off the, so when you're on the call, and if you submit the application and it doesn't get approved right away, I'm writing another application on them, and I say, hey, something came up here. Just a few quick questions that the underwriters are kind of looking at. So like when you said, and like I kind of refer back to my discovery phase of it, I kind of go back like, okay, so like this high blood pressure, let's kind of go deep into this. What's going on here? Like, have you been hospitalized for that? Are you on more medications? Have you been prescribed more medications than these 2 that you gave me? Sometimes they test. One of the agents that I'm working with, we submit the application with Aetna, declined. And we're like, dude, what the heck? Submit the application somewhere else, declined. And we're like, dude, this is not normal. Like you need to like do deeper discovery in the underwriting. Yeah. So we're like, all right, let's break this down. So we submit it, like he goes 2 different carriers, gets 2 declines. And so we're like, dive deeper into the blood pressure. Well, turns out she was prescribed 7 medications in the past year. And he didn't know that, but like, that's where you really have to go deep into this discovery. So if something goes to underwriting with a carrier, I say, hey, something came up here. Just want to like, and I go back through the underwriting, double check that and make sure, okay, this albuterol, what is this for? Is this for asthma? Is this for allergies? Is this for COPD? What other medications did they test you on? Did you get prescribed any other medications? Like, and each line by line by line, and then anything else I could think of, I kind of run through that in the back of my head. And then typically something else comes up that like, okay, yeah, I forgot this one medication, warfarin. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, okay. So it's like, okay, that makes sense why this would go there. And then you kind of go into a policy and kind of explain what this policy is and does. If it's modified, you kind of explain the waiting period, things like that. And then you go and submit the application with a different carrier. And then I would just call into the underwriting on the other carrier and just let them know that you want to cancel that in review thing. So that's a huge thing. Get the green light every time, because that will help. So 1 sale a day, my motto used to be 1 sale a day, but because that would lead to a lot of cash flow, but it's really 1 issued policy a day.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to know, like, get off the phone knowing that that's approved, you should have in 1 to 3 days have a deposit hit your account, sometimes the next business day, your cash flow is going to be like really good. So that's another thing, is make sure to get that approved, and make sure to bill on Social Security. Obviously, like, that's a big one too. That'll help. Make sure to do true Social Security billing. So yeah, that's kind of my 3 tips on that, is make sure that you have an approval on that, and have an abundance of leads, and make sure that your tonality is locked in.
So we're going to take some questions from the audience. So we can do a little different. If you've got questions, raise your hand. I'm going to run to you and stick the mic in your face to ask. But before that, abundance of leads. What is an abundance of leads for a full-time telesales agent?
20 to 30 brand new leads a day.
A day. Okay. So 100, 150.
Yeah.
A week.
Yeah.
Fair to say.
Like,
okay.
Could it be more
than
enough? Yeah. Like, and so here's where I say, like, the phone getting flagged is a massive problem that, like, if you're over the phone, you have to pay attention to. My ads were performing really well. I was getting $2 leads. Like, these were coming in hot. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to scale to $200 a day, right? Get 100 brand new leads a day. And I kept only selling like 2 policies a day. And I was like, what the heck is going on? I'm making 300 dials a day, not out of like lack, but like out of abundance, because I triple dial everyone. That's kind of how that goes. So, but it's because my phone kept getting marked as spam and I didn't know it. And I didn't even care. A lot of people would be like, oh, dude, your phone's getting marked as spam. I'm like, I'm just going to outwork it. And like, at some point, there's things that you just can't outwork that's actually going massively against you. And so this is one thing I do want to mention, is there's things that you don't want to get caught up with, especially right away, when you're starting. There's things that you could get caught up on that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And so for me, I thought this was one of those things that it's like, just make more dials. Like, what are you doing? Just work harder, right? But at the same time, that's something you can't outwork. On the flip side, there are things that like don't really matter too. Like what calendar you use. Like, you can Google Calendar and Outlook both look great. They work the same, right? You can use Calendly, you can use Go High Level for a scheduler. Like, these little things don't matter. So like, don't spend a lot of time on those as well.
Right.
Could you remember?
So Number Verifier, yeah, it's a company that checks it. So they check it daily.
Questions? Raise your hand. Anybody? Let me come to you. Hold on a second.
What's your best carriers, top 5 carriers that you use?
Top 5 carriers. So I like, in terms of telesales friendly, I really like Great Western right now, but also like they're being a pain in the butt right now. So like, they're not like the biggest person that I'd recommend right now. Baltimore Life is great too. I like Aetna and the fact that like it's a 6-digit code that's super nice. Royal Neighbors is great for that same fact. I know SBLI has a great product too. I just don't have access to that based on previous companies, but like SBLI would be a great one just because a lot of people have COPD and it's a voice call. It's a voice authorization, I think.
I think they do a text assign. It's
Text assign.
90% of the time it's approved if they answer everything no.
That's huge, right? So if I had SBLI right now, I'd be writing them a lot. I'm trying to think who else. American Amicable. American Amicable is they're more towards the expensive side, but like in terms of like the ease of use, they're a great one because they're a text to sign as well, and a voice authorization too. Trying to think who else. That's really what I would say there. And then if they're super healthy and they're patient, Trinity or Family Benefit. If they're patient, because sometimes sometimes the voice, the phone interview can go a little bit longer. So that's what I would say for sure, is like if they're healthier and they're patient enough, like sometimes that phone interview flies by, But sometimes it could definitely get longer. So that's what I would say.
Send the healthy people to Trinity, right, Alvin? That's okay. All right. Question? Wait.
Yeah. What is a typical day for you from the standpoint of time management? Do you work a straight 8 hours or do you break up the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've heard a lot of philosophies. I'll just share what works for me. I'm really disciplined on getting in the phone by 8 or 8:30, 8:30 at the very latest. And because I have a lot of leads that come through like during the nighttime, and I'm just calling them up. And then I also am responding to the text. So I'm working 8:30 to 6 typically. And I'm just like on the phone dialing like most of the time. If I need to call a carrier, I'll call them around 1 or 2. Because at that point, like I know I have sales on the board. It gives me some more like peace of mind. But like there's this sense of urgency, like massive urgency. Like you just got to get some more new business every day. And like if you're able to accomplish that before like 10, get that first sale before 10 or even noon, sometimes even 2, like that's massive. So I would say that's your primary focus at the beginning of the day is selling. I like this saying because especially me being on my fitness journey, like my goal is to lose 40 pounds, down like 20 now. And I kept hearing this saying over and over again, eat the frog. And a lot of you guys may have heard that before, but like do the hardest thing at the start of the day. So like when you wake up, like for me, like I would wait till the end of the day to go to the gym. That's the first thing I was doing. And that's literally what I do right away. I wake up and I go to the gym. But for you selling, the thing that's going to be the hardest is just getting on the phone. So like just eat the frog right away, do it at the beginning of the day, start then, and then you can focus on other stuff after that. And then like a lot of people talk about a ton of admin work, but I guess I don't see it, or maybe I just don't do it. I don't know.
Well, I think part of that is picking the right carriers that you get stuff issued on.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of agents still put stuff with carriers that get referred and get a wait on, and they cause the problems themselves, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So you're making calls. Do you ever follow up if nobody calls with a text message?
Yeah, for sure. Call within 5 minutes. So like right when they fill out the form, call. Does that make sense?
Well, they call, they don't answer, then you send them a text message.
Oh, the automation, so my CRM, it sends text message automations right away. So like I don't typically text, it's all like automated out for me. So it's sending, so here's another thing is what I noticed after like trying to resolve 10,000 leads this past year that I've generated, 90 to 95% of my sales came in the first 3 business days. The 3 days within the lead getting generated. So I hit them hard the first 3 days. Like in the first day, it's probably overboard, but I send like 9 or 10 text messages the first day. But it's like, hey, it's like, but it's acting like it's a real person. So like I send out the initial one, then I send out hey, I tried to call you. I called from this number. Give me a call back. Our direct line is this at the office. Give me a call back. Hey, is protecting your beneficiary name, is protecting them still important to you? Just need 4 minutes. And then I say, hey, just had a client reschedule. I have a quick 20-minute spot open right now. Call me at this number. And so like I get like about 3 to 4 inbound calls a day of people saying like, hey, like, sorry, I was super busy. I was like at the doctor, but like, can you talk now? I mean, you span that over a good amount of time, and it's like, that's an extra like 5 to 10 presentations a week that you don't even work for. So that's huge. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Come on.
What are you reading right now?
Great question. The Bible. That's the only book I'm reading right now. I don't read a lot. I do listen to a lot of stuff, and in terms of listening, I listen to a lot of Alex Hormozy. I listen to a lot of just people who I want to be like, in terms of like mindset, skill set. So I listen to a lot of podcasts of like business people talking about how to make a more profitable business. Like Alex Ramosi is just going to be like the go-to person for that, just because it's just the nuts and bolts of that. But I will listen to, I honestly like, so I've interviewed a ton of people, like Dave Duford, Cody Askins. I've interviewed a lot of people on my channel, John Wetmore, Sean Mike even, a lot of different people. So I check those out. Like sometimes I actually listen to my own interviews just because I interview somebody as like really curious and trying to like somebody listening, like what would they ask them? If they had access to this person right now, what would, like if somebody were to come to David Duford right now, what are the 3 questions they would ask? I really try to like think through that and be really thoughtful in those conversations. So like I've done, I don't know, over 100 interviews, I would say, just on my YouTube channel. So sometimes I actually re-listen to those because there's a lot of good ones. So yeah.
So when it comes to chargebacks, are you just like writing more business to kind of replace that, or are you calling the clients back?
That's a great question. There's a lot of things that I've done recently to be able to actually like get that dialed in, because that can be a problem. So recently what I've done is getting to the client, get them a piece of paper as fast as possible. So every morning I actually have like a VA that goes in, and every time I sell a client, I write their address next to it. And so every morning she goes in and sends out a card. So it says like, hey, thank you so much. I'm Johnny Nidafan. Like your policy should get here in a few days. Best of luck with everything. So that'll help with that. Now, so that goes to them, and that'll get to them within 3 days to their house. And that'll get there before the policy gets there, just because I want to give them as much proof that this is real, because all they have is my voice to rely on, right? So like, if I get a policy number right away, I give them the policy number. I give them the premium amount. I give them when the first payment's going to draft. Right after that, I send them a text. Say, hey, thank you so much. Congratulations on your approval. The effective date is this day. You do have day 1 coverage with this carrier. And I let them know it's going to be out of the 3rd Wednesday of every month after that, so that they can always refer back to that, because there are guaranteed going to be agents that call back again. Another thing is the 2 promise close. So when you finish the call, you say, Miss Mary, I'm super grateful and happy that I was able to help you out today. And I promise you a lot, right? I promise you the rate's never going to change. The coverage will always stay the same, that I'm going to be there for you and your family when that time does come. This will pay out to your beneficiary right away, that you are covered from day 1. I just need you to make me 2 promises, okay? All right. Now, the first one is, if this ever becomes unaffordable due to a life event, I need you to call me. The worst thing you can do is up and cancel the policy, because this does build cash value in the policy. And that'd be crazy, right? But there are things we can do in the future to make this more affordable. But we agree that this $50 a month fits inside your budget today, right? Yes. Now, the second thing is, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of life insurance agents out there soliciting business. And that's completely okay. But if you get a call, or if you get a text, or if you see an ad online about you could get a better rate, I was actually able to look at the best coverage for you and your family, making sure that that would pay out right away. I've had clients in the past that have come to me and they call me and say, hey, Johnny, I ended up going with this policy, but what ended up happening is they were in a 3-year waiting period. I would just hate for that to happen to you, that the policy doesn't pay out to your family. Also, I mean, there's policies out there like term that like maybe they get $10 cheaper, but the rates continuing to increase over time. I had a client the other day that actually came to me and said that they went with $10 cheaper, but then they were in a term policy, right? So we agree that if somebody calls you, that you'll call me and I'll actually let you know if it's a better product. And if it is, I'll actually write it for you. Is that fair enough? And the third thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put you on the do not call list. This will help eliminate 75% of the calls that you're getting. And yeah, and that's that. You'll actually get an email. Is that okay? And then they're really happy about that. So that's another way to lock it down. But in terms of the like chargebacks, typically just outright it. Like if you have a consistent flow, just outright it. Also save 20 to 30% of your commissions into a chargeback account, and then you can just pay the carrier right then and there. If you get a chargeback. So it's like typically there's something in the pipeline there. I try to condense and write 3 to 4 carriers. If I have to, I'll write a couple more, but try to stay within those, because if you know you're consistently writing business with them, those will continue to get paid off. Does that make sense? Oh, that's a great question. So oh, yes. Yes. That's a great question. Yeah, I have typically 1 day a week or every other week, I'll call the clients. If I see it come back, I'll call them. But sometimes like it's during the middle of the day, I'm on a presentation, then it slips in my mind. What I'll do is I'll set them in a follow-up. So like, and I'll call my chargebacks like typically once a week. Or I'll call them back right there, right when I get it. So that's what I do. Yeah. And then if I don't, I just leave them a voicemail. And so with Kixie, it's just I recorded a voicemail and it just keeps going. So yeah.
All right. Cedric and then John, and that's it. Well, okay. Make it quick.
Do you typically do the one call close, or do you
Yeah.
set appointments?
No, one call closed. Yeah, right when I make contact with them, I'm closing them. If I get them on the phone, I'm like right then and there.
How long is your typical sale? Like an hour, 45 minutes?
30 to 45 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Generating leads on Facebook. Did you teach yourself? Did you take any courses? Like, what would be the best place if somebody wants to learn that?
I teach agents. Yeah, so I actually I help agents with that if you guys are looking. I also have a ton of content online of like free resources if you don't have money to be able to invest. But like if you are like, I have 2 videos like going full in depth on like how to generate your own leads. But I also like paid a lot of people to like teach me one-on-one, because that's really like, you can get a lot from a course, but like there's a lot that one-on-one that they could teach you specifically.
How can agents reach out to you?
DM me on Instagram or Facebook. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook.
What's your Instagram handle?
Johnny, JOHNNY, Nitafan, NITAFAN 1. And then on Facebook, just Johnny Nitafan. And then subscribe to me on YouTube. So it's NITAFAN, Nitafan. NITAFAN.
Lonnie, thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.